Hey everybody, welcome to the Black Men with Purpose podcast. For those of you joining us for the first time, it's such a pleasure to have you with us. This is a safe space where we share our thoughts on a multitude of topics in hopes of helping Black males, young and not so young, overcome the obstacles and challenges that can be hindrances to happiness, productivity, and success. We believe through our experiences, successes, and failures, we can have some conversations that might help other Black males in their respective journey through this thing called life. Welcome back, fellas, and today on this episode, we're going to talk about a few things that are blackety black, because this will be the only episode of this season that we'll record during Black History Month. We've got a lot to talk about, what we think about the Super Bowl, specifically the halftime show. What do we think about what's going on in the world? What do we think about the progress that we have made since some of the hopelessness we might have been feeling when we dropped the first episode of season 4? So we've done a little rebounding. I do want to make a couple of clerical notes. Our brother Kev has been watching, and a couple of people reached out to me and wanted to make sure that I addressed a few things. And the first thing I want to address is that a few times in the first episode, we talked about Black people voting for Trump when the numbers definitely say that overwhelmingly Kamala Harris had so much of the Black vote. So I think we put too much weight on the few that voted for Trump when an overwhelming majority of Black registered voters did vote for Kamala Harris. And then the second point is it was noted that we kind of had the sound as if Black people don't support Black-owned businesses, and the statistics say otherwise. And so we just want to speak to those feelings, maybe. We don't want to go so far as to apologize. I think there were some points that we were attempting to make, but we do want to make sure that we don't come off as not believing in our community and believing in the way that we support each other, the way that we support our political journeys, and the way that we support Blackness. So we want to make those notes before we got started. And since we are getting started, I'm going to pop a clip in real quick, and then I'm going to come back and ask the brothers how they feeling.
Share it. Listen in.
Are we tired? Yes. Are we angry? Yes. Are we exhausted? Yes. Are we frustrated? Yes. Are we weary? Yes. Are we outraged? Yes. Are we determined? Yes. Are we resolute? Yes. Are we scared? Hell no. Hell no. We're Black people. We're people of color. I ain't afraid of you. I'll take you out. Hell no. We are not afraid. We are not scared. We are not scared because we've been here before. This is not new to us. This is not our first trip around the sun. No, we've seen all these schemes. We've seen all of your tricks. And I want you to know that what goes around also comes around. Have I got any warriors in here today? Have I got any Martin Delaney's in here today? Have I got any Harry Tubmans in here today? Have I got any Sojourner Truth in here today? Have I got any fighters in here today? We ain't scared.
We ain't never scared, the preacher said. I think folks need to understand something. We absolutely want to live in peace amongst all Americans, amongst all people. All we want to do is raise our kids, take care of our family, love our spouses, and go about our day-to-day business.
With that in mind, fellas, how you feeling? I'm going to kick it over to Ray to start us off, man. How you feeling, brother?
Man, look.
Ray to start us off, man. How you feeling, brother?
Man, look. Every time I see that video, I get hyped up. I get excited. I'm like, because that brother ain't never lied. He ain't never lied. No, we ain't scared of nothing, nobody. One thing that we do know how to do as a people is fight. And like I said in the last episode, you know, I couldn't imagine that in 2025 that we've got to fight the same fight that my parents and grandparents and great grandparents had to fight. but it's a fight that we're not going to back down from. I'm going to stand up and speak for those who can't speak for themselves. I'm going to stand up and speak for those who might be afraid to speak. I've never been afraid to share my opinion or use my voice. And I know that the brothers in this forum, and if Kevin was here, Kevin would be saying the same thing. We're not scared. We are going to go forward. If it's a battle you want, it's a battle you got, because we're gonna make sure that our voices are heard, and that we continue to move forward to trying to move us back. But that's how I feel right about now.
Brother Rod, how you feeling today?
Man, good. I probably am a little indifferent to what most other people might be thinking. While I agree that we're not scared as a people, I guess I when I was listening to the clip, and I saw it earlier last week, but I think back to, while all that's true, where are we at when we really need to show up, right? It's one thing to be quick to want to fight and fight back. Okay, I get it. But I am looking for all the things that happen on a daily basis that chip away at our freedoms and rights, benefits and entitlements, even though, some questions about who the Constitution was meant for when it was written, what's being chipped away there. Because ultimately, it's not any kind of physical fight, but they're going to fight where they believe their strengths are and where they believe we're weak at, right? And it just reminds me of, this adage I've always heard in our community, about the crab in the barrel syndrome, where we're not always quick to push one another up. And, and that's not to say everyone or every, community of color is like that necessarily, but you can go to any city in this country and go to a Black community and ask them, how they are about supporting one another just in their own community, and get the feedback. So, I would like to see us, do the little things like, okay, increase the amount of time that the Black dollar stays within the Black community. If you really want to make an impact, and you believe that, economically you have the ability to do that, since we, tend to be large consumers of goods and, products in this country, or that's what's believed. And I'll have to take a deeper look at the numbers, but, and attack it from that way. Because I think it's not about where you're strong at and what you're willing to fight with. It's about where it matters most to them. Can we hit them there, or get their attention there, where they have to pay attention now? So we're spending, billions upon billions of dollars in this country as consumers. What can we do there to get their attention, to say, we do have something to offer economically? Because at the end of the day, this is a capitalistic society that we live in. That's what matters to them. Anything other than that, I'm not sure that they really care a lot about it. So I'll pass it to Brother Byron and get his perspective. But that's initial thoughts.
I'm like you saying, Rod, about sticking together. We don't stick together all the way through the process. You know, when 47 was running, he had one process that he spoke to the poor people, the rich people, whatever, that DEI was the downfall of our country. And that's what he ran on. And so all the people that supported him was on that vein. A couple of weeks ago, Jamal Bryant, pastor, talked about boycotting Target. You know, and it's like we don't stay together. Like we can't stay out of Target 10 days. You know what I'm saying? Or we can't support another candidate that's a candidate of color. We want, because, and we have some people say, well, I'm not going to support that person. I'm not going to support them just because they're a person of color. They got to give me something. And it's like, we don't look at the long game, you know, and I've said this before, you know, it's like GOP, they're paying chess and we're playing checkers because we want something for the right now. And if we can just get our people to understand that sometime you're going to vote for something that's not necessarily going to benefit you now, but will it benefit your nieces and nephews? Will it benefit your children? So many times we vote for the right now instead of what's going to be beneficial down the line. And so going back to the clip about not being scared, we just got to be scared to make that sacrifice for us. Like so many times we want something for us right now, but it's like, guess what? The thing that you vote for, it may not be a benefit to you right now, but it'll benefit for you down the line. So yeah, we're not scared, but at the same time, are you scared to make that sacrifice? And I think for us, sometimes we don't even want to make that sacrifice. Don't even want to talk about the sacrifice that we have to make. We're going to keep going to McDonald's. We're going to keep going to Target. You know, we're not willing to make that sacrifice for the greater good, you know. So right here in Maryland, we got somebody that's running, you know, where Angela Alsobrooks was running for the Senate. Sister girl didn't support her. And now she's running for her seat. And I'm like, I don't understand why. And this whole nother topic. I don't know why black folks can't support black folks when you get into that space of leadership, when you get into that space of being a city council, when you're running for the Senate, you're running for mayor, for governor, whatever. Why you can't support another black person if the only thing you have is just a little personal issue? And sometimes we'll let personal issues keep us out from being successful as a people. So I'll leave it alone with that. I'm hand it over to John,
and yeah. I'll take it. I was saying to Ray before we got started that I believe that we are in a time period that is going to make us stronger, that will bring us closer together. I said, but at the same time, it's unfair. There's nothing right about it. It's a necessity, but it's not something like, oh, this is good for us. We shouldn't have to be going through this. We shouldn't have to be relitigating fights that were happening in our parents' and grandparents' time, and having executive orders that take away rights that were, you know, fought for in the 50s and the 60s. And, you know, it's ridiculous, but yet it still will make us stronger. And I will say, you know, I understand that, but I'm going to go back to Ray's sentiment. When I see that, I feel encouraged because I'm reminded that maybe we got comfortable in believing the process is supposed to work for us. And, you know, to understand that the question, why does everything have to be about race? And I've been doing a series with some folks talking about how much things really are about race. You know, like we don't recognize that things like insurance started because Black human beings were the first property ever insured. You know, to-go plates were created because segregation ended, but they still really didn't want us to eat in the restaurant. So they started to-go plates. Like when you go down the list of things that started college tuition, because Ronald Reagan didn't like the idea of Black people getting education and getting a leg up. And so he diminished the grants, took away the federal funding for grants, and then upped the tuition costs. And so now you have exorbitant tuition loan debt because they didn't want black people getting an education. So, sometimes you just have to recognize that there are things that are stacked against us. And James Baldwin and the brother that was narrating the clip, the Benjamin Dixon, he's a preacher and a pastor. When he said, man, we want to live peaceably among all of our American neighbors, people of all colors. And it makes me think of what James Baldwin said. He said, we don't want nothing from you. We just want y'all to leave us alone so we can build our communities, And we recognize that when we make progress, when we build, they have historically destroyed what we built. Like, I think it's important for us to recognize that, no, we ain't just been out here just failing. The blowback came because of how bad we were during Reconstruction. Like, we was fresh off of being slaves and we started building political power and making things happen and making it shake. And the blowback, we talk about Black Wall Street in Tulsa, but man, it was so many impressive Black communities that they just destroyed. And so recognize that when they go after all this stuff, they going after us because they brought us here. We don't have the right connection to where we're from, who we really are, but they remember, they know who we are, what we're capable of. That's why the strategy is there. And so, I say that sometimes we got to kind of keep our eyes open because I think because of where we come from and how we grew up, it's really easy to see the negative things happening in our communities and then skate over the really amazing, great things that we're doing. And, we talk about the lack of discipline that we have, but 6 days ago, the shareholders at Target sued because they were taking so many losses from Black folks ain't fooling with Target no more. And so now the shareholders are suing Target, and Target trying to put out these little commercials and apologize. And now they're talking about bringing back DEI programs, potentially. They're not totally, but they are starting to feel the pain. And there are, that's a great point that violence should not be the only thing that we bring to the table in fighting. And I just think the strength of our spirit to continue to fight when it's unfair. I was talking with a friend of mine and he was just like, I just hate the racism and this, that, and the other. He was a white guy. And I said, you know what? Now we're not going to see this amazing society where racism is vanished in my lifetime. I'm well aware of that. I never believed we would. I just think that everything that was happening during George Floyd and all that, I'm like, oh, wow, America's having a reckoning. Now we bounce back. They showed us who they are. You know what I'm saying? So I don't believe that I'm going to see this perfect union in my lifetime. But, do I want to see progress? Do I want to see us have our own? And I think it's important for us to really focus on where are our success stories locally, where are we. One of the things I just really think about is like if we could just start working on neighborhoods, like John Singletary can't impact the whole nation. I don't have the resources to change the trajectory of the lives of every Black person in the United States. But I can do something here in this neighborhood where I live and make an impact and build power. And the government could be falling apart, but states will still run their governments and cities and townships and neighborhoods. And we can make a difference that way. But, we can't be determined because of insurmountable odds because the odds ain't never been surmountable. It ain't never been like it was fair. It's always been crazy. Like to be whole human beings with a rich history and to start from the perspective of we not even human. So I think we need to be encouraged. I think we need to, keep pressing. We need to keep pressing. But I appreciate you, fellas, because we do got to be real about how we feeling.
Yeah. And so John, you make a great point. And the one thing that jumped out was in our quest for real progress, how do you keep score of that? And I think that's like something that we, can quantify if we really want to measure whether or not we believe we're making true progress or not, and it's not about, how many black millionaires they have in America now, or how many billionaires we're able to create. No, because I think, folks that reach that level of, I would say, economic or monetary success in their lives, they've done some things that are amazing, I'm sure. But it's really about, when I think about it, going back to the community where I grew up at and seeing, do we still have boarded up homes there that are just sitting? That the city's not invested enough in, that community being revitalized, when you can actually create affordable housing for the people in that community. Those are kinds of ways I think that we can keep score whether or not, our communities are thriving or not. Do our communities have access to fruits and vegetables? So those types of things. And I think if we can get back to what really matters, that's going to push us forward, to be the kind of community partners, and also partners within, other communities in this country. Because part of the problem is the reason that racism is always pushed forward is because there's not enough time truly spent on people of different races and ethnicities taking the time to really understand our cultural differences, our religious differences, our differences in what we value and why we value that, and having an understanding and appreciation for that. I'm fine with people being different. I want to understand what it's like to grow up on a farm in Iowa, because I never had that experience, but I know it taught a lot of great values. Now, if it taught you to be afraid of or not want to mingle and mix with people of other races and ethnicities, then let's have a conversation and understand the why of that, So I'd like to see that. That's my hope. And, when I think about, well, this shouldn't be happening and all that, you know what? I always go back to my faith and my belief and understanding that if they could treat Jesus the way that they did, who am I to complain about being treated a certain way? So I'll leave it at that.
Y'all want to get none of that piping hot right off of the skillet? The brother said, No, I totally agree, man. Thank you so much for that. That was spot on. When we talk about, hey, black this, black that, man, the diversity, we've all been beneficiaries of meeting diverse people from diverse backgrounds with diverse skill sets and all of that. So absolutely, we always got to look for the OG to come in and ground us with that wisdom, that earned wisdom. I didn't want to make it something that we researched, man. I just want us to come from the heart, talk about some black history that we're proud of, something that inspires us, something that we can carry with us that we talk about without having to do some study. And I'm going to put Bishop Dr. B on the spot.
Oh man, Black History Month. I think of my grandmother, my father's mother, and I think of my mother's father. So I'm gonna start with Mr. O.C. I mean, Mr. O.C. Couldn't read or write, and so to go from not being able to read and write to having children that graduated from college, 2 generations later, I think it's amazing. And then, you know, I look at, you know, my grandmother. We talked about Alabama before we got on the call, right? My grandmother was a maid. So she was a, you know, a domestic, as they say. So she was a maid. And my grandmother had 12 grandchildren. And her thing was, hey, I want to make sure every year I give my grandchildren $2 at Christmas time. You know, we a kid, you know, as long as you get, you know, as long as you get something from your grandparents, you get excited. You don't care what it is, right? And so, and you know, to this day, you talk about Black history, all there's 11 of us still living. 2 of them are millionaires. 4 are entrepreneurs. 3 doctorates in the group. Nobody's in jail. And you know, for the most part, everybody's healthy, you know, established, you know, got their right mind. You know, we all may not be millionaires, but you know, we're successful in our own right. And that goes back to what Rod was saying. We all may not be millionaires, but can we be successful in our neighborhood, in our community? Are we successful in our own household where, you know, our kids appreciate us, or, you know, the neighborhood kids appreciate us? And at the end of the day, if you're giving back to people like that, so that's my little Black history thing. You know, I appreciate, you know, I know it didn't happen quickly, but when you look at the struggles that we had to go through as a people, and for 2 generations later, you go from not having a college education, matter of fact, not even having a high school education, because I don't believe my grandparents on my father's side finished high school. And then, like I said, my mother's father couldn't even read or write. So to go from that and two generations later, you know, I think it speaks to our success and our resilience as a people, that, you know, no matter what we face, we ain't gonna give up. Like my man said in the video, we ain't scared. So, you know, some of us was doing chair training. So, you know, but we ain't scared. So yeah. But yeah, that's my little Black history moment. You know, I give it over to Brother Ray.
Well, like you, B, the first person that comes to my mind, and again, being blessed to have grown up in a 2-parent household, I look at my parents. I look at specifically my mother. My dad worked for I remember before I was born, or when I was born, he was working at this company called American Welding, and he ended up going over to General Motors after that. And my dad was one of the first Black foremen. You know, I never forget him telling me the story about how one of our neighbors, who was out and out racist white man, comes over to my dad, like, "Hey Ray, where's your foreman?" My dad said, "You're looking at it." And this man about choked on his water, because he was like, You're what?" Because he realized my dad not only was just as smart or smarter than he was, but my dad was making more money than he was. So that just irritated the hell out of that man, and he stopped speaking to my dad after that. After he found that out. But then also, I look at my mother. My mother was one of the first Black entrepreneurs that I had ever seen in my life. You know, and yeah, I was 12, 13 years old when she opened up her beauty salon. You know, and she was one of 2 Black women in my hometown. The other one was her cousin, her first cousin, that owned their own beauty salons. You know, so my mom was a good example for me to see that, you know, when someone that looks like me can actually own their own business. And then I go further down the road. I mean, myself joining the military, my cousin Curtis and I, we're 4 months apart. I'm 4 months older. He was the first one to retire from the military, and then I was the second. You know, and never saw that coming at all. You know, I joined the Air Force for 4 years, and I'm like, I'm gonna, you know, get my college money. I'm gonna mature. Then I'm gonna get out and go back to school and go do my thing. And it was like, no, I'm having too much fun. This is something that I'm enjoying. It's a good path forward to me. I can have a retirement. I'm going to be able to do something where I won't have to work hard for the rest of my life. You know, so I stuck with it. And like I said, I'm the second butler well, hell, on either side of my family, the Butlers and the Browns, I'm the second person to have retired from the military. Um, and then I'll go to my bonus daughter. My bonus daughter is an entrepreneur. You know, she's and Byron didn't know she was my bonus daughter until he happened to be at a conference that she was sponsoring. You know, and that's when he calls me and we're talking about it. You know, but then seeing how she has succeeded at soon to be 33 years old, you know, living her best life in Atlanta, homeowner, you know, and then I go to my baby who at 29 is an entrepreneur, homeowner, you know, seeing she owned her own home at an earlier age than I bought my first home. You know, so I'm like, you know, just seeing the history and seeing that, you know, my daughters are entrepreneurs and that they are successful and making their own way in life, you know, and only want to call just to talk or get some advice. Um, that's my little bit of Black history, you know, and not only that, but then also I'll go back to my military career working with the first female one-star general in the history of the Maryland Air National Guard. You know, and then I believe I was the first minority recruiting and retention superintendent in the history of the Maryland Air National Guard. You know, so I'm like, wow, actually part of Black history. I actually did something that I was successful at it, and can't nobody take that away from me. So that's my little soapbox. Um, I'm gonna pass it on over to Brother Rod.
Wow. So the one thing that that really sticks with me regarding Black history and what I believe was and is today will always be significant is the experience that Harriet Tubman had in getting started on the Underground Railroad. And, you know, and I think it's important for people to understand that it were actually white women that got her started on that path in introducing that to Harriet Tubman and then also helping her along the way, and not just those that helped her get started, but those along the way that supported Black people being able to live outside of slavery in this country. And that's why, you know, I think when I think of the importance of diversity, I think of it from that perspective. You know, had it not been for diversity, a lot of things that that Black folks have been able to achieve in this country, it may not have been able to, because they needed the support of people other than those that just looked like them. So, you know, so I think it's important for us to remember that, you know, and although, you know, I think we probably feel like and believe that we have a ways to go to experience true equity or equality. Let's not forget the progress we have been able to make. And then are we willing to, because here's the big part of that. Are we willing to sacrifice some of what we can gain individually for ourselves and even for our families in some cases to help some other families and some other folks come up, you know? And I think for me, when I look at, you know, our communities, sometimes that can be a barrier, you know, where it's like, hey, you know, I'm grinding for mine, you need to do the same for yours. Okay, you might have information that might help me do better for my family. Are you willing to share it? You know, sometimes we are, sometimes we absolutely are not. So I think that without a doubt, Black history is always going to be important to this country. I mean, look at, you know, all the inventions that came from Black folks. You know, and we just celebrated, you know, President Jimmy Carter, as we should have, but, you know, it was another Black man that was a huge peanut farmer in the South that people don't talk about. So, you know, I just think that the successes are there, the progress is there. We need to be willing to pick up the torch and carry it. And a lot of times, and most times, that comes with some sacrifices that have to be made, you know. And I'm just of the mindset. As I've gotten older, you know, I always wonder, you know, how much money is enough money, right? For one person or one family. And, you know, and that's why I think that those who are ultra successful from an economic perspective, more times than not, you'll find they're very generous in giving back. And I think that that's why they've been blessed so in that manner, you know. And so you have to be willing to give back, you know. So, and I'm hoping that we can do more of that because quite honestly, I don't think it's no secret that institutions sometimes are stacked against progress for all, right? Which is why they had DEI programs, you know, and why diversity is such a big thing. And so when you see these corporations and these companies, you know, deciding to get rid of it, that's all politics. They're playing to the political spectrum, you know, or the pressures from it that are forcing them to say, well, you know what? Yeah, if it's not a thing that's in vogue now, then we're going to get rid of our program too, you know. And therefore, folks that think that it's important to have diversity can then say, you know what? Okay, well, if you don't believe in diversity, then I just won't support your company. And truly be able to do that, right? But with that sometimes comes being able to walk away from the conveniences of it being, you know, a mile closer to me than the other store, the other option, and deciding to do that. And so before I get any further away from, you know, the theme of Black history, I'll stop there. But that's where it led me to. So those are my thoughts, Brother John.
Hey, that's what it is, man. That's what it is. And just so y'all know, that young Black man that was a peanut farmer that Rod was referring to is none other than George Washington Carver, a name that means a lot to me because growing up, the library that was walking distance from my grandmother's house, Carver Library, and I grew up there. We got our love for reading and education there, and we would hear about George Washington Carver and so many other Black people. Growing up on the east side of San Antonio was so transformative for me because recognizing that there are people that do not grow up in Black spaces with Black people who love being Black. And I had the privilege of growing up in an all-Black neighborhood, going to all Black schools around all Black people, and we celebrated being Black, you know, pride of the East Side festivals. We were doing Juneteenth before the rest of America was aware of Juneteenth back in the 70s and 80s, having them festivals in the summer and Lakeside and the Barcades and the Ohio Players. And Zapp and Roger Troutman coming, to perform and hanging out and getting to meet all of them, and things like that. And it's just, it makes me think of the Tupac lyric. He said, I remember Marvin Gaye used to sing to me, had me feeling like black is the thing to be. You know what I'm saying? So I'm grateful to grow up surrounded by people and never feeling like being black somehow was a bad thing. Always feeling like if I had to die and come back, I'd come back twice as black as I am now, because of loving it that way and loving who we are and learning how. And that leads me to who I want to talk about for Black History. I know I talked about a lot of people just now, but Carter G. Woodson, who is the father of Black History Month, started a Black History celebration. Got a day, got turned into Negro History Week. And then finally we got to Black History Month. And Carter G. Woodson authored The Miseducation of the Negro, which was very important to understand that when we get into these issues of being proud of being black, it is because it has been codified into the language that there is something inherently wrong with being black, that you are inferior because you are black. When they talk about the word Caucasian, there is an inherent, in the word structure, there's inherent superiority by saying, and we think that that's science. That's not. That it has been disproven. Race is a construct, but it's a construct that has impacted us. So one of the things that Carter G. Woodson gets a lot of credit for that we don't talk about is Pan-Africanism. And basically, he became very, very adamant about decentering whiteness and centering blackness in our everyday lived experience. And that's important because that means that as black people, our standard doesn't have to be what's right by people who are white. It's not that there's anything wrong with the white perspective, because people get upset when you say black power. If I love being black, that don't mean I hate white people. I just love me. But it had to be codified into the culture that being radically in love with being black because you're oppressed, you're supposed to be less than, and to love ourselves, that's an act of resistance. And so Carter G. Woodson has always inspired me, but as I dug deeper into that, it inspired me more because it's an honor to be black. It ain't easy. It ain't simple, because we're sitting on here talking about things that we struggle with. And there are things that we could do better as a black community because we understand our communal nature. I love how Rod said, man, capitalism ain't gonna save us. Capitalism ain't really capitalism. It's really just corporate socialism, but we call it capitalism because when them big corporations can't get the job done, they get bailouts and they don't have to wait 6 and 8 months to get them. They said, we're going to bail out this industry, and 3 days later, they got the checks. You know what I'm saying? So it's corporate socialism. But as people of indigenous descent, from indigenous countries, from communal countries, from a communal culture that believed in the tribe and the good of all of us, man, it's in our DNA to love our people as a whole and to look at things more important than me getting the most. And I get it. We see lots of outliers, but let me tell you something. We didn't all had experienced some antiques, some classic black folks that just, baby, you had something to eat. Are you okay? You know what I'm saying? And it's in our DNA to just love and care for something else. Like somebody was saying, it ain't nothing like when a black woman, like a grandma or your mother, something take care of you. There ain't no love like that. And it's true. I was just talking about the other day, the experiences that I've had with black women that I didn't know that just looked out for me. Me and LJ were in the airport last year and I couldn't get up with TSA Cares. They usually come in and kind of help escort us through because of special needs. Man, it was just this random black lady who worked for TSA and saw us, and she just waved us over and just brought us in. I didn't have to tell her what's going on. I didn't have to tell her, hey, my son's autistic. She saw what was going on, saw what we needed, called us over. We didn't even have to really say much. I just was like, thank you and appreciate you. And she, it's all right, baby, come on through. You know what I'm saying? Like, we are phenomenal. And it's stories like that, in spite of the struggles, in spite of the times when we haven't come together the way we should. I remember these stories. And to get back to my point, Carter G. Woodson, the miseducation of the Negro, let's center our love for being Black.
Yeah, and thank you for mentioning George Washington Carver's name. I realized I didn't even mention his name, but I mean, just contributions, and so, and even thinking about diversity, okay, born in Missouri on a slave plantation, just how he got his name Carver, but actually got educated at Iowa State University, and then of course ended up in Tuskegee, Alabama, and over 300 uses for peanuts to his credit.
That story is crazy.
I'm just like, wow, and you're right. So those are the things that we have to celebrate. And no matter how much they try to, cancel out the contributions of Black folk in this country by taking away access to books that speak truth to power, that we should want kids to know, learn, and understand about all the contributions that have been made to this country. But if some of them might make my kid feel bad, instead of realizing that as a parent, it's my responsibility to make sure they don't feel bad about something they had nothing to do with, but that they understand the truth of what this country was built upon, who contributed what, what dastardly deeds were done, that people might be ashamed of. But the truth is the truth, So anyway, I just wanted to add that on. Thanks a lot, brother.
With you saying that, Rod, that just brought me to, how they're trying to do away with. I'll use the term that everybody's using, DEI. And we really need to stop using the term DEI and call it what it is: diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because when the DEI just makes it seem like this black, and when it is diversity, it's equity and inclusion for everybody. We need to be teaching our children, no matter what color they are, the history, like you're just saying, of the dastardly deeds that were done, not to make them feel bad, but so we don't repeat it. And that's exactly the route that we're going right now, is by doing away with all these programs and making it seem like Black people are taking advantage of these programs to get a leg up, when these programs were created to give us and everybody else, women and other minorities or other race groups, the opportunity to be included, to have the opportunity to succeed when the chips were stacked against them. So we really have to get away from using the term DEI. And I'm saying that as a country, we really need to get away from using the term DEI and call it what it is, so people can understand the definition is right there, as to what it is, by using those three words instead of just using that acronym. Because, like you said, this country was built on the backs of Black folks. If you didn't know that Benjamin Banneker was the surveyor for Washington, D.C., you wouldn't know it, because they're only telling us that, well, everything was created by the white man. The pyramids in Egypt were created by the white man, when there wasn't no white folks there. So we really have to get away from just letting them use those terms and say, okay, well, woke and DEI is bad, and we're going to teach this, that, and the other. We have to get back to using diversity, equity, and inclusion, and using the actual words as to what it is so people can understand this is exactly what it means instead of giving the alternative facts that they are giving us. So I yield the floor, bro.
You're right, man. We got to get rid of all the
Yep.
catchphrases. DEI, man. Give us woke back. I get so sick of hearing them use woke. Give that back to us. That don't belong to y'all. That man, y'all mishandling woke and CRT. All these dog whistles, man. And all people got to do is a Google search to realize how crazy they been, but can't get them to do none of that, man. Byron, did I jump in on you? Look like you about
That's
to say
all right,
something.
man. No, you on it today, man. I appreciate it. But no, diversity, equity, inclusion, all that is removing the barriers that were put into place for us to succeed anyway. And at the end of the day, that's all we asking for. Give us the same opportunity to fail and succeed, just like you give everyone else. We're not asking for extra points on the test. You know what I'm saying? We're not asking for the corner office. We just asking, can you give us the same opportunity? And I've lost a couple of white friends by this asking them this one question. I said, you're so caught up with what diversity and inclusion or DEI, and you're so bent on the fact that somebody's getting something that you're not getting. You've been my friend for 12, 15, 20 years. Not one time have you asked me how racism has impacted my life. And when you ask that question, they're gone. They're ghosts. They don't want to understand. And the other thing, as Ray was talking, sometimes you will have people, well, you have white folks that don't believe what our reality is. I was watching Roland Martin having a conversation about a gentleman, and he was just telling him basically how appraisals will actually lowball Black homeowners when it comes to refinancing their homes. The guy, after Roland Martin still gave him data to show it, he still said, "You're lying." And I'm like, all we want you to do is just understand what we're coming from. You don't have to believe it, but at least let us explain it to you and understand that it's our reality. You might not understand it, but that's our reality. And so I think for us, when we're talking about just educating people, if we could just get people to accept the fact that, hey, guess what? This is reality, what we had to go through to get to this point. And we've always had this conversation yesterday. You know, we always have been told what we got to be 10 times better. I mean, we've been told that from kindergarten. When you got to be 10 times better, you got to act 10 times better. You got to pay attention 10 times more in order for you to get the same opportunities as somebody else. And unfortunately, guess what? We still got to have that conversation with our kids.
Hey, I have a question. So your friend that you say you lost, they didn't even ask how racism impacted you after the George Floyd incident?
No, that conversation went left.
Oh, that
even when George Floyd
probably
got
should have
killed.
ended then. Because if they don't care enough about you to have that conversation then, yeah, I'm not sure what it would take.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Wow. I mean, I had people asking me about it who I didn't even really have a close relationship with.
Mm-hmm.
And they felt some sort of way because it was caught on camera.
There you go.
Played back. And I think because the generation behind us saw it, because the folks that were asking weren't necessarily the same folks that watched Rodney King take that beat down.
Right.
Right? Because that was just like, okay, he got a beat down. Yeah. Who next?
Yeah.
As opposed to, no, this is actually brutality that we should not stand for. Right. So interesting, man. I just, I don't get it, but
I agree. I don't think you lost nothing.
Oh, no. I'm not sad. That's for sure. I'm not sad. So
it just, you make a good point. In the book White Fragility, it talks about two myths that the United States has, made white people to believe, and that's in the idea of individuality and then the idea of objectivity. And it really grounds how they see things. Like it speaks to what you're talking about, to have that conversation. And we talk about, as human beings, if one of my friends that happens to be a woman comes to me and says she's experienced sexual harassment, sexual assault, it's not my first instinct to say, well, I ain't never harassed nobody. I don't start thinking about me. I think about this person that I care about, and I want to give her a voice to express what she needs to express. You know, I'll make my joke who I need to go beat up, but to support. But when we talk about racism, there are some people that want to bend over so backwards not to be racist that they don't never even stop and say, oh, well, how has that impacted you? It's just, I ain't racist. I don't want to hear about none of that. Put their hands over there, la, 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 I'm not racist. You know what I mean? And it's because of this idea that, oh, okay, I could be an good individual and I don't have to be worried or burdened with these difficult things. But we know that, you know, I'm fumbling the actual quote, but, you know, Dr. King said something to the effect of, you know, it's not when bad people do bad things. It's when bad things are happening and good people don't do anything. And, you know, that's really, you know, kind of where we need to look at all of this stuff is like, it's impacting somebody. And how do I sit by and allow people that I care about or people I'm in community with suffer, and I just walk by and say, well, I'm not the reason why you're suffering, so I'm good. You know what I mean? That's crazy. But man, happy Black History Month to all of y'all fellas. We kind of running up close to an hour on the tape machine here. So, you know, it was another great episode. Anybody got anything before we close out?
I heard tell that there's going to be some kind of don't shop at Target on February 28th. I don't know if y'all have heard anything to
when was Pastor Harrison Bryant talking about the fast from Target? When were they talking? Because I know that they pushed that forward. It was like in March or something.
No, he said he wanted to do a 40-day fast from Target. He wanted 100,000 people not to shop in Target for 40 days. And
wasn't it starting sometime in March?
I don't know.
I stopped shopping there, so February 28th works for me because that'll just be another day I ain't going in there. You know what I'm saying?
I can't get. I don't know exactly what the specifics, but Rod, that is what I did hear was that they wanted to be for the 28th of February to be a don't shop at Target day. I was actually having that conversation with my mother this morning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if we could do it February 28th and then have that go through March, because end of March is when that first quarter is over, and that's when the financial reports come in. And if we made an impact, you know, we won't really see the financial reports until like early summer. So, yeah, I think that would be a good idea. So, y'all heard it here, February 28th. Don't take your behind to Target. Hey, but it's
they're already struggling.
Yeah,
they're already struggling.
Make them struggle some more. Make them feel it. Make them feel it. Yeah, make them feel it.
I saw an article that said the only reason that they even implemented some of the DEI policies because they felt compelled because George Floyd was killed in their home city. And so they felt compelled. So I'm like, so that means that Black folks only matter to you when we die? Do we have to be martyred all the time for y'all to even notice us? You know, that's what bothered me with that whole statement.
That's how y'all know y'all messed up. You got Byron banging on his desk. Hey, gents, man, thank y'all for another great show. As usual, we're going to close out with a quote. And the quote for today is, I've learned over the years that when one's mind is made up, this diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with fear. And that is from the legendary Rosa Parks. So with that being said, y'all, we out.
Peace.